prosperity in austerity. Commanding prosperity in austerity. False riches. I read a data years ago, I think 1986 or 1996. It was in 1986 data that 80% of Americans owe more than they own. Hello? They owe more than they own. That is false riches. What is it? You have it, but it's not really yours, and people think it is yours. It is false riches. But God has reserved for us true riches. The one that is constant under any condition. Come and say constant. You are a man, there is no pressure on the earth that will now turn you to a woman. That the pressure was so much, you just suddenly became a woman. Now, the truth is that you are created a man. The conditions prevailing notwithstanding, you are still a man. Even if you wear skirt, it doesn't change it. And blouse. And high heel. And you paint your lips and your fingers. Has that removed that fact? That's pure camouflage. The truth remains that you are a man. So there is access to constant riches. Everybody say constant. It's there all the time. The question is, how do I connect with this provision? It's there. How do I connect with such provision? It has been proved all through scriptures that spirituality is the biblical platform for true prosperity. What do I call it? Spirituality is the biblical platform for true prosperity. Spirituality is the biblical platform for true prosperity. It's constant. Now, pick on a young man, or let's start from the man called Abraham. Abraham, God was so much in touch with God that God could direct his practical steps. You better understand this. And the Lord said to Abraham, and Abraham knew God was the one speaking to him. His spirit man was effectively alive. He possessed a buoyant spirit. In fact, God called him his friend. I know God is a spirit. And so for someone to be his friend, he must be highly spiritual. Abraham was a friend of God because two cannot work together except they be agreed. And he was in command of true riches. Not only true when he was here, but true for generations after him, and still true till today. Spirituality. Think of a young man by name Joseph. He carried God's presence visibly. And the testimony is, and the Lord was with Joseph and granted him favor and mercy before his master. And he was a prosperous man in the house of Potiphar, his master. The Lord was with him. And you know what the Bible says? Jesus speaking, he said, he that sent me is with me. My Father has not left me alone, because I do always the things that please him. So for God to be with you, you must be a spiritual man, operating by what God says. John chapter 8 and verse 28. Now, then you look at him in the prison, and he was a prosperous man as a slave. Everybody say constant. Then he was promoted to the prison. And in verse 21, he said, but the Lord was with Joseph. But the Lord was with Joseph. That is Genesis 39. You read verse 5 and then you go to read verse 21. Now, as a slave, he was prosperous. Say constant. True riches. As a prisoner, he was a prosperous prisoner. What a paradox. Constant. 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 Commanding prosperity in austerity. There was no worse economic situation for Joseph than to be a slave. And then was he a prisoner? A prisoner has no property. He has prison uniform. But he became an official of the prison. They committed everything. He determined what food they were going to give the prisoners. I perceive they gave him an office. And whatever was done in the prison, Joseph was the doer of it. Constant, true riches. Constant. I'd like to connect you with this. It will help you live above what goes on here. Constant. Spirituality is the biblical platform for true prosperity. God was with him. And he was a prosperous man in the house of Potiphar, his master. God was with him and he gave him favor before the keepers of the prison. And they made him an official in the prison. He was checking out the welfare of others. How are you doing this morning? Are you okay? Cheer up now. What's happening? You need to hear from home? Okay, I will organize for that. He was in charge. In the prison. So it is not the economic situation that makes situation worse for people. It is their lack of connectivity to God. Spirituality is the biblical platform for true prosperity. Think of Job, a man that feared God and eschewed evil. A perfect man. We haven't talked about his giving at all. He worshipped God, he offered sacrifices, and then he became the greatest of all men in the East. Job chapter 1 verse 1 to 3. Now you see, a man that feared God, he was in touch with heaven. Spirituality. And when the wife said, hey, look at the problem you are in. Are you still holding your stand for God? He said, shut up. Why are you speaking as one of those foolish women? And he went on in Proverbs 13:15. Even if he slay me, I will yet trust him. I'm not serving him for things. I'm serving him for who he is. Even though he slay me, I will yet trust him. Shut up. He was a man deep in God. He wasn't a man playing pretty in austerity. Commanding prosperity in austerity. False riches. I read a data years ago, I think 1986 or 1996. It was in 1986 data.